Joining me live now is Laurie Lawrence, founder of the Laurie Lawrence Swim School. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we're hearing such devastating news about so many drownings over this Christmas period. Laurie, how are you going with this news?
Oh, it's dreadful coming through. I mean, the effect it has on families is just absolutely devastating. And particularly over the Christmas period when people are out there enjoying the water and being there with their family. It's just dreadful. It affects not only the families, but communities that they live in. So drowning is a huge issue in Australia. It prides itself on being one of the great nations, swimming nations of the world. Here's a little 1-year-old, just turned one, showing how it's possible to dive in at even an early age with a mother. And then I think a mother swims her over to the side of the pool. But it's all about trying to teach children at a very early age respect for the water and independence in the water. If we can teach these two things as the young kids get older, you can see this young girl here now, beautiful, learning the skills of backstroke swimming. So swimming's got so many exciting things for young kids, and I think it's probably one of the best Christmas presents any grandparent or parent could give their child. Instead of give them toys, give them the joy of learning to swim, because it's the only sport that can save a life.
Very good, important messages there. And you're a former elite swim coach yourself. You were coaches for the Australian Olympic team, so you know swimming very well and the importance of, swimming, as you just saw there with the 1-year-old and the slightly older girl there. But unfortunately, due to cost of living pressures with COVID lockdowns, there have been a rise in people not going to lessons. But a very good point you make there, Laurie, about perhaps it being a present rather than a toy. What could we do if perhaps people don't have money for swimming lessons? What would you advise?
The best advice I can give is children can only learn to swim if they get into the water. So as a parent or a grandparent, the idea is to take your child or grandchild to the water as often as possible. They won't have the fine skills that this young girl's got here because she's learning to even do butterfly at this stage. But they learn to float. Once they learn to float, they can learn to move through the water. And the more often you get them in the water, the better they get. So parents, grandparents, if you can't afford swimming lessons, you can afford to take your child down to the river and supervise closely, or down to the ocean and supervise closely. But the best place is those shallow play areas that you see in many of the community centres, where the kids can go in and play in shallow water. And if you do that regularly, your child will learn. They won't have a Dawn Fraser technique or Emma McKeon or Kaylee McEwen. They won't have that sort of technique, but they will be able to move through the water and be safer and enjoy the water so much more.
Laurie, we would love your advice as well, please. It's obviously the beaches that people are going to be heading to cool down and have fun, pools as well. But unfortunately, we've heard some tragic news with, the devastation of wild weather and, people getting stuck in stormwater drains and situations and, of course, dams. There are so many areas where people can be affected by water and, unfortunately, fatalities and accidents can occur. What would you advise people in those situations?
Anywhere there's water, a child can drown, depending on their age, how deep you need the water. I mean, we had a young child many, many years ago drown in a dog bowl, a water bowl for a dog in South Australia. So the young children, at this age, when they're young, they just love to explore. They get their little trainer wheels, their little legs start moving, and so they move from point A to point B, and the place they love the most is the water. They love to be in the water, they love to be underwater, they love to play with water, and it's so, so good. When you stimulate them, it's the only place where a full immersion stimulates all the senses of the body, and particularly for young babies. I mean, if you get your baby taught to swim early, Professor Robin Jorgensen has shown by a longitudinal study that kids learn, it builds their social, emotional, physical, and intellectual capital. They're smarter, they're better coordinated, and they're safer. And they're healthier too, Janie.